Okay, pre-calc. So part 2 of our trigonometric graphs, or graphing our trig functions. In the first part, remember we talked about amplitude and phase shift. So those were changes to our y values. And now we're going to talk about a period change in our phase shift, and these are going to be changes to x values. Okay, so this is all going to be horizontal stretching or shrinking. So you can think of a phase shift as a horizontal shift, and period change is going to be like a horizontal stretch or shrink. So we already talked in the previous video about amplitude and vertical shift. Now B and C, B is going to have to do with our period length and our phase shift, and C is going to have to do with simply the phase shift, moving it left or right. Okay, and our period, for sine and cosine, like we've already said, a period length is always 2 pi. So the traditional one that we look at is going from 0 to 2 pi. That's traditionally. Now, it's not always going to be the case. It is, like we've said before, the interval and the length it takes for the graph to repeat itself. But when we change it, when we have a value for b, we're going to find it by dividing the typical length by b. So what that means, and since we're only looking at sine and cosine, is 2 pi over b. And that will give you the new length of your period. So that'll tell you how long until the graph just starts to oscillate up and down, repeating itself. And then the other thing, like we said, a phase shift is a horizontal shift, always C over B. The other thing is C over B. Notice that it was minus in that previous window. So that's going to be the opposite, just like most of what we've looked at so far this year. Okay, now if there is no B value, then it is just C. Okay, and some examples of that. If I have like y equals cosine of x. So you can see here I have one normal period length here in the middle from 0 to 2 pi. Okay, and so I go beyond those, but really we're just going to focus from 0 to 2 pi for x. And a reminder, your amplitude, so if I change it to 2 times cosine of x, I have it outside, now that's a. You remember that we have maximums higher and minimums lower. Okay, using 2, but now moving it inside with x, so now we're changing that x value in there. You see that we actually get tighter. So it's like we took our whole 2 pi from 0 to 2 pi, and now our period length actually starts to repeat itself after 1 pi here. Okay, so if we did 2 pi over 2, we'd get 1 pi. So that makes sense. Now we have a period length of just 1 pi. But you notice your maxes and your mins, while they moved where they were, they didn't get any higher or lower. Excuse me. Okay, so that would be our period change. In the next one then we have is our phase shift. Now a phase shift is usually going to be some sort of radian angle. So we've got plus pi over 2 and minus pi over 2. So plus pi over 2, that's the opposite. That means that our C value is negative. So we actually took all of our points and moved them to the left by pi over 2. So you notice your max was here like at 0 pi over 2. Now it's moved pi over 2 to the left to 3 pi over 2, and it is at 3 pi over 2 and 1. We had an x-intercept at 3 pi over 2. We moved it left by pi over 2. Okay, doing minus pi over 2, so let's get rid of that other one, everything actually moved right. So when it was at 2 pi is now at 5 pi over 2. What was at 3 pi over 2 is now at 2 pi. So everything moved to the right. We could even do one with both of those in there. So cosine of 2x, let's say minus pi over 4. Okay, and now, whoops, what that does is it not only changed the length of our period, so you see we're repeating ourselves much quicker, but we also moved pi over 4 to the right. And in fact, it's going to be pi over 8 because it's got to be C over B. So that would be pi over 4 divided by 2, which gives you pi over 8. Okay, let's see if I change that to just pi. Maybe that'll be a little easier to see. So we shrunk it down, compressed it horizontally, and then we moved it pi over to the left. So you see your maximum here moved over pi over 2, which is pi over 2. Alright, so that is it for this lesson. I know that is kind of complicated and hard to see in the video, but I just want to give you an idea. Period change is like a horizontal shrink, and a phase shift is like moving it left and right horizontally. Okay, we'll see you guys next time.